It's Heidi Fang here with Sam Gordon, one of our Raiders writers. We're going to talk all about the O-line today, the Raiders offensive line, as we head into the season as it comes closer, March 17th. It's not that far around the corner. Some things were solidified with the salary cap. We're going to talk a little bit about that, how it affects some of these big contracts that were made for some of the players here on the offensive line. But Sam, first, how are you doing, man?
Doing good, Heidi. Happy to be back. I'm excited for the new league year. We're getting, like you said, we're getting closer. We're getting closer, and a lot is going to happen. I'm super excited. We already see QBs moving around the league left and right. Can't wait to see what the Raiders do and how they build out this roster and try and get this team back into playoff contention.
Well, some of that, and getting back to it, is going to mean getting space available for other players to come in that they can sign in free agency or from the draft. So, Sam, if you're going to look to trade or cut somebody on this offensive line, who are you looking at and how do you do it?
Well, Heidi, I think this to me is the most interesting kind of going into free agency and starting the new league year. This is the most interesting storyline to me is what are the Raiders going to do with Trent Brown? Right? We know he signed the biggest contract ever that a right tackle had signed at that time before the 2019 season. And we know when he plays and when he's healthy and when he's active, he's a really good player. I mean, one of the most dominant right tackles in the NFL, but availability has been an issue with him. He's only played 16 of the 32 games, and he's due to make $14 million cap hit in 2021. Now, for the Raiders, from the Raiders' perspective, they already paid off the guarantee part of his salary, so they can part ways with him right now for no cost. It doesn't affect their cap space moving forward next season. They could just get off that $14 million, create $14 million in cap space. The question is, what do you then do at right tackle? Is this a situation where you try and work with Trent Brown to renegotiate that number, maybe lower the dollars and get some guaranteed money in there because he doesn't have any guaranteed money? Or maybe you just part ways with him and somebody else picks him up on a shorter term deal, kind of a prove-it deal that's laden with incentives and things of that nature. So to me, that is the biggest domino to fall as we get this offseason started. He's a really, really good player when he's available, just hasn't been available very often for the Raiders.
Another guy who hasn't been available, Richie Incognito. He missed most of the season with that Achilles tear. So when you look at somebody like Richie Incognito and the money that he's guaranteed in the coming year, what do you do with Richie Incognito, who's aging? He's not getting any younger and has missed so much time here with the Raiders.
Yeah, he's another guy, Heidi, that I think that the team is going to, probably look to move off of. I mean, like you said, he's an older player. He's approaching his age 38 season. He's been around since 2006. We don't have many players from that era that are still in the NFL. He is due to make $5.475 million if they keep him, but he's another guy they can part ways with and minimize that cap hit. Guaranteed money already paid off. So that's another way they can create cap space. On top of that, another guy, Gabe Jackson. He's been a very, very reliable veteran, a crucial part of the offensive line, what's been a very good offensive line, but he's due $9.6 million that they can get out of if they choose to. Now, the key is how do you replace these players? Gabe Jackson, again, been a very quality player. Richie Incognito, when he was available, was very solid, though they didn't have him in 2020 for most of the season. What do you do? How do you kind of reshape this thing moving forward? I think one person that we know is going to come back, that's got to be the center, Rodney Hudson, who for year in and year out has produced and played at like one of the elite centers in the NFL. He does have, there would be $15 million in dead cap space if they part ways with him. And considering how good he is, kind of the anchor of that offensive line, I would expect him to be back in, obviously, Colton Miller at the left tackle spot too. But I think there's a lot of moving parts here. How do the Raiders reconstruct this line, and what do they do to create cap space to alleviate other issues they have on the roster? All things to keep an eye on going into the offseason.
I think someone we need to touch on here because we have not spoken his name yet, Denzelle Good. Right before the season ended, his teammates were rallying for him, particularly Gabe Jackson, saying he needs to get paid. So do they pay Denzelle Good because he was so versatile on that offensive line when injury struck?
Yeah, Heidi, that's a great question. I think I think there's going to be a market for him given, like you said, that versatility. He can play any spot on the offensive line. He's done it. He did it at a pretty high level this year. He's versatile. He's experienced, and he knows what to do. He's a selfless teammate, as evidenced by the ways he was able to bounce in different roles throughout the course of the season. At one point earlier in the year, John Gruden referred to him as the team MVP. He said he might be the team's MVP because of how he was able to move in and out of the lineup. So I think there has to be some emphasis. I think the Raiders definitely are going to look at bringing him back, but I expect other teams to consider bringing him in as well. You can never have too many good offensive linemen and too many versatile offensive linemen. The Raiders know that, and I think based on what you saw in the Super Bowl, what happened to Kansas City Chiefs, I think the league knows that too, that there's never too much depth, especially at that position. Games are often won and lost in the trenches, and he was a super important part of what the Raiders tried to do in 2020.
And just like you mentioned there, the Super Bowl, on the flip side, the Bucks had a really great young rookie in Tristan Wurtz, who made his name known in that game. Do they start bringing in somebody now, Sam, that can learn under someone like, if they keep Incognito, someone like Trent Brown, somebody young to bring into this offensive line to help kind of build it as some of these other guys that they have in there start to age out?
Yeah, for sure. Let's be very, very clear. Defense is going to be first and foremost a priority. We know that across all three levels of the defense, defensive front, linebackers, defensive backs, they need help on all three levels. And I think they're going to definitely prioritize defense in free agency and in the draft. But when you talk about a draft, there are 7 rounds, and we see all the time offensive linemen drafted in the mid to later rounds. It's definitely an area where I would expect the Raiders to invest in and to look in and to do their due diligence in the draft and maybe add another player or two. We saw them do that last year with John Simpson, the guard out of Clemson. Now, he didn't. It was kind of one of those situations like you're talking about. How do you bring him in, let him sit, develop him, and maybe he can become a starter. So that might be an option to replace Incognito or to replace Denzelle Good at one of those guard spots, at that left guard spot going into 2021. And I would expect them to try and bring in another young player or two to eventually develop, whether that's to plug and play right now or for the future as the veterans on the offensive line age.
Great stuff, Sam. Well, the Raiders did re-sign David Irving today, so there's one part of the defense coming back that we are aware of that just happened about an hour ago on Friday, so on Thursday, excuse me. So we'll be able to track some more progress as we continue these series with what the Raiders are doing here with their defense, and you can keep up with everything that we're doing in print and online at vegasnation.com. And don't forget, download the Vegas Nation app. For Sam Gordon, I'm Heidi Fang. Thank you for watching.